HSO 201, we are going to discuss interval estimation, applied probability and statistics. This is my last low-tech approach to discussion. All others would be screen sharing mode. I'll set up the things, so I'll try to do it in the best possible way. So, but I'd already fixed up things for today, so I'm just doing it today. From the next class it would be different, and on from next any other videos in case you are seeing my other videos. So we are going to talk about interval estimation, and we are going to talk about only one kind of estimation today. That is about estimating the mean of a normal population, of a population described by a normal PDF, whose sigma square value or the variance value is supposed to be known. So this is what we are going to study today, interval estimation. Okay, so we all know what interval, we are going to talk about interval estimation, and let me just try to stop those things. So this is part of HSO 201 course, and you already have the notes, so please read the notes separately. Here we won't be so detailed as the notes. Here our approach is to give you the basic idea. Sometimes even in the class there are a lot of details in the notes which are left. Okay, so there goes the first slide, and then this is what we are going to do. Our basic structure remains always the same, that here is the population which is given by a fx theta. Theta could be vector, could be real, fine, doesn't matter. We will take it as a real valued thing for the moment, just one parameter is there. So there is a population described by a PDF. It could be described by a PMF, but I am not going to bother about PMF at this moment. And here then, as always, we will take a sample of size n. N could be anything, could be 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever, 100, 2000, doesn't matter. So it's a sample of size n. So all of these x1, x2, xn are naturally IID random variables, and we develop a kind of combination or function of those random variables or the random sample, and this function of the random sample observations is called the statistic which you all know, and we will work in this framework only. Okay, so once that is done, one has to realize that we have been talking about estimating parameters, unbiased estimation, maximum likelihood estimation, method of moments. We want to give a numerical value to the parameter. But you also know that if we are talking about drawing population which follows certain PDF, that these are continuous random variables, then you know that if you just take an estimator big theta, and which is a function of x1, x2, xn, a statistic, and you say okay, this is equal to exactly the value of theta, probability of that is 0. This is a probability that capital X equal to small x is 0 when x is a continuous random variable. This is a fact that you know from the beginning. Once you know that, you might ask that okay, I may not be bothered much about whether it is exactly equal to the statistic value, where theta is exactly equal to the statistic value. I want to know whether that unknown theta lies in some interval around that statistic value. That is, you want to know whether something given a gamma between 0 and 1 and given some delta greater than 0, does theta lie in a delta neighborhood around the statistic value, that is theta capital X1, x1 dot dot xn. So when capital X1, capital X2, xn would be observed, that will become x1, x2, xn, then things are obviously much easier. Then so for that particular sample you will know in what range it is lying, right? So but when you compute probabilities, you compute the probability using a random variable. So this is the random variable, right? But theta is unknown, I do not know. I am just asking the question that given a gamma, that is possibly gamma is pretty large, and I want that, and given a delta which is reasonable, I want that the probability should be lying, that theta should be lying between these two, capital theta plus delta and capital theta minus delta. The actual parameter value theta should be lying between this. This is sometimes called the confidence interval. This interval, big theta minus delta to big theta plus delta, and Gamma is called the level of significance. So more generally, that theta 1 plus delta, theta minus delta, we can call them capital theta 1, capital theta 2. I don't need to be bothered much about those kind of symmetries, right? So because you can have many long tail distribution where symmetries can be broken, so we need not bother much about symmetries at this moment. But okay, what we can do is that we take two theta and theta, I take theta 1 hat and theta 2 hat are to observed values of theta 1 and theta 2 corresponding to some particular observation of the values of the random samples. When you take a random sample, you have certain observations like maybe heights. You take another random sample of the same size, you have a different observation of height. So whatever, you have taken a random sample, you have observed the values, and so you can calculate capital theta 1 and capital theta 2, which are two statistics associated with that particular sample observation. Now I ask whether what is the probability that theta is lying between these two statistic values, theta 1 and theta 2, and I'll fix an alpha which is called the confidence interval, and I will want that probability that it lies between theta 1 and theta 2, that theta lies between theta 1 and theta 2 is equal to 1 minus alpha. If it happens, then this observed values of theta, capital theta 1 and capital theta 2, that is theta 1 and theta 2 hat, is called the 1 minus alpha 100% confidence interval for theta, or just 1 minus alpha confidence interval for theta, or 1 minus alpha is sometimes called the level of significance. Okay, so with this basic idea done, let us now get on to the more meaningful stuff. So let us talk about estimation from a normal population. Let x be a random variable which follows n mu sigma square. So we have a population. Say population, as I want to again remind you, it is not always about people. It is about certain data or characteristics taken from people or anything. This could be the lifetime of a light bulb, which may follow exponential distribution, or it could be the heights of the students at IIT Kanpur, which would usually follow normal distribution. So here is a population, and we are studying certain characteristic of the population, and that follows a normal distribution, which you know very well. Normal distribution is so ubiquitous that I need not write it every time. But what we assume here that the mu, which is the theta basically, is not known, where sigma square is known. So now here it is a PDF, but is only one, seeing real valued element, only one, theta is real valued element, is the unknown element, sigma square is known. Now how do I develop confidence interval for mu? Mu is the actual stuff. So what I do, I know that x bar is an unbiased estimator. So can this unbiased estimator x bar, the sample mean, be give us a clue or be a vehicle through which we can develop certain confidence intervals? So here we will show that indeed it is so. So just to recall something about x1, x2, xn is a normal is a sample observation, and then you take x bar, the random variable which is given as x1 plus x2 plus xn divided by n. So this is your capital theta. Now you know that E of x bar is mu and the variance of x bar is sigma square by n, and x bar actually follows normal with mean mu and variance sigma square by n. This is known to you, this has already been taught in the random sampling classes. But you know, when we work with normal distribution, the key is never about just working the given normal distribution. The idea is always to transfer to the most simplest one, the standard normal distribution with mean 0 and variance 1. So that's what we are supposed to do. So when we are talking about confidence intervals, we will bring everything in terms of that element z, which is the standard notation for the standard normal variable, and we will talk in terms of that. Okay. So here is the graph of the standard normal variable z. So z, or fxx or fxz, whatever, is 1 by root 2 pi to the power minus x square by 2. You know, this is absolutely symmetric around 0, and that is why it's so interesting. So here z alpha by 2 is a point such that the area after area under the curve after the point z alpha by 2 is alpha by 2. Similarly, the area before the point minus z alpha by 2 by symmetry is also alpha by 2. So the remaining area is 1 minus alpha. So I want the probability that mu lies between some theta 1 and theta 2 should be equal to 1 minus alpha. You can see that 1 minus alpha is pretty big. I want alpha to be small. Usually alpha is taken to be 0.095. So 1 minus alpha is 0.95. So if you can find the range in which probability of that mu would lie between these two, theta 1 and theta 2, with 0.95 probability, then it's very good. So then we can say that the level of significance is 0.95. So 1 minus alpha level of significance. So how do we build it? So what do we have from the picture? That any probability of finding any standard normal variable z between minus z alpha by 2 and plus z alpha by 2. I am writing z alpha by 2 to signify that this side and this side, these two sides of these 2 points are having area alpha by 2. So any x that is or z lying in this interval, that is between minus z alpha by 2 and z alpha by 2, the probability of that is 1 minus alpha, because the probability is nothing but the area under the PDF curve, which again I am writing it in this way. So please look at it if you want to take it down, but it's given in the notes if you do not. And for others who are observing it, please take it down. But kindly understand, this is a regular course that I am trying to make some easy sources. So people might be, who are just coming in and looking at the video, might get really confused. Okay. So once that is done, the game can be very easily played. And I know that you know how to play that game. And I really don't have to tell you how to play this game. The game is simple. The game is, you know that x bar follows n mu sigma square. So z is nothing but the random variable minus mu by the standard deviation. So x bar minus mu by sigma by root n would follow n01, that is standard normal distribution. And I know already that z lying between minus z alpha by 2 to z alpha by 2 has the probability 1 minus alpha. So x bar minus mu by sigma root n, that value lying between minus z alpha by 2 to z alpha by 2 has probably 1 minus alpha. That is, so instead of z I am putting this. What in the previous slide I had z. In the previous slide I had put z, which you had seen, right? And in this slide I put this one. I put instead of z here, I am putting this value. And once I put this value, what is happening? So this is what so I'll get a 1 minus alpha level of confidence because I can solve it out for mu. So I am showing that mu is lying between x bar minus z alpha by 2 sigma by root n and x bar plus z alpha by 2 into sigma by root n. I've forgotten to write sigma by root n, but please don't mind, this is a mistake here. I've forgotten to write sigma by root n. But here I'm writing the theta 1 hat and theta 2 hat. This is correctly written. Theta 1 hat is x bar minus z alpha by 2 sigma by root n, and theta 2 is x bar plus z alpha by 2 sigma by root n. So here we have created the 1 minus alpha confidence interval for the mean mu of a normal distribution whose variance is known. Because you see the theta 1 hat and theta 2 hat has to be completely known. X bar would be known from the random sample observation, z alpha 2 is anyway known from the normal tables, and sigma, because it is known and the sample size is known, theta 1 hat and theta 2 hat are completely determined. They have to be completely known. Once you make a sample observation, theta 1 hat and theta 2 hat has to be completely known as numerical values. So we have ended the first part of our study of interval estimation. Now obviously you can ask me what happens if the sigma square is not known. Kya karoge aap? What are you going to do? That we will talk about in the next class. Thank you for today and have a good weekend.